Okay, so we're going to share up our screen and we're going to go through a little bit of an exercise in how to create rubrics and why they're necessary. And at some future time, hopefully we'll automate all this. But for now, I'm going to kind of go through and explain a few things, and it's going to be kind of fast paced. So just pause and play with it and back it up to whatever you'd like to do. So first off, begin with the end in mind. The goal here is that when I come down to the grading area and I've turned on Busy Bee's grading assistant, you see these little stars in here indicating that I've had AI assist me in creating a draft grade. When you click on these, Busy Bee actually will do a nice thing. Here's my student reply. And because I have a rubric, it's going to go through and give me details about the rubric, score the rubric, give me feedback, draft the message, give the score. If I don't have a rubric, we'll go ahead and draft the message and give a score based upon the title, the description, the objectives, and the content. But if you also add to it a rubric, that it just does a much better job. So the goal is, how do I create these rubrics and how do I create them in such a way that they're not generic, right? So here's mitosis and meiosis. And the first row is stages of mitosis. And what are the 4 stages? If I had to write this, A, I'd have to be an expert, and B, it would take me quite a while, right? So comparison of mitosis and meiosis. So this is very discreetly written with, a generic grammar and organization as my 4th line. I'm also happy to use points in this one. So it's a 1 to 4. You can change it up. We're going to talk about how all that comes together. So the goal is, how do we create rubrics efficiently and quickly using various tools in order to have the grading assistant provide a better feedback and learning opportunity for our students? That's the goal. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about how rubrics are stored inside Buzz. So I'm going to come back up here to the admin. And we know that if we come over to the domain settings and we scroll down in here, we're going to see a chunk here for rubrics. So if I come down here and I see rubrics, and I can go ahead and look at a rubric, I can see it has a name. Or if you create from scratch, which is highly recommended, right? So if I were to do a new one, I would come in here and say import, and I would call this my AI rubric, and I'd call this rubric rubricai.xml. It needs to end in an XML, right? And I'm going to say, I'm not going to put anything there. So actually I want, in my case, this is where you design what your rubric's going to be. So in my case, I'm going to just repeat my 4 scale like I did before. And I'm going to go ahead and add another row. This will also be a 4 scale. I'm going to add another row. This is also going to be my 4 scale. And then the last row, I'm going to add one more down in here. And I could have made it 3 instead of 4. It doesn't really matter. This is going to be grammar and organization. That's what I want my grading scale to look at down at the bottom. I want to make sure it's organized well and the grammar's right. The rest of these, I'm going to let AI fill in for me. So I'm going to call this whatever I want to, right? My four areas. So hang on, let me just get this right so you can kind of figure out the whole thing with me. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come up here for a minute. So emerging, developing, proficient, advanced. So I'm going to come back over here to here. So I'm going to do emerging, developing, proficient, and advanced. Right, so you can kind of get the lay of the land. I'm not going to fill out anything else. I'm going to say done, and it's done, and make sure you save, and it's out. So now I've got this rubric set up. So first off, where's that rubric stored? So if I come back to resources, and I come through here, and I look at public, and then I go to shadow, and then I go to app, and then I go to Buzz, and I say AI, you're going to find it right there. There's the name I gave it. And if I click on it and I look at the editor, this is what it produces for me, right? So this is really important. You got to grab that, right? And you can save the file as well, but I'll show you the way I used it in creating it this way. So you can see I've got a 4 scale, no title on the first one, second or third one, because I want AI to generate that. No body, I want AI to generate that as well. And on the grammar, I want it to be grammar organized and let AI fill out the rest, right? So that's how we grab this. Now, there's a couple of tools that you're going to need to have. The first one is some kind of text editor. I like Notepad++. I'm happen to be on a Windows machine. If you're on a Mac, you've got other options. But I'm going to go ahead and put this somewhere, and then I'm going to save it with a very specific name. So I'm going to File, Save As, and I'm going to put it in my downloads and then junk. And then in here, I'm going to call this underscore rubric.xml. So you need to name it the same way, underscore rubric.xml. Name it that way. You'll see why here in a minute. Now you can see that it's highlighted and I've got my shell set up. So I'm going to move that shell out of the way. Okay. So now that I've got that squared away, I don't need to worry about this. That's all fine. The next thing I need to do is I need to look at what courses I'm going to mess around with, right? So in this case, I'm just going to flip over. Well, let's just start a brand new one. No, let's just show you one that exists. It'll make it a little bit more gnarly. So I'm going to go to the teacher app, and I'm going to come over here to this Busy Bee, Better on Busy Bee course. And I'm going to look at the editor. Now in the editor, we know that when I have a Dropbox, and again, currently this is January 22nd of 2025. Currently, when you look at this, Busy Bee is only currently doing grading assistant on comments. So you have a rich text comment, don't apply a submission. Later on, we'll figure out how to add the rest of these, but for now, we're just using the submission box. When you have a submission box, it's very, very important for each of your activities that you actually add an edit one, because rubrics have to be connected to the manifest. So I'm to the outline of the course. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add a new assignment, and I'm going to call this AI rubric, and I'm going to put my content box, just so you can see how this works. And I'm going to come over to settings. I'm going to allow content. And because I'm allowing content as a gradable, I'm going to change percentage to rubric. And I'm going to add a rubric, but instead of adding something else, I'm just going to add an empty rubric, and I'm just going to call it AI anything example. It doesn't really matter. I just have to have the manifest of the course, the thing that make sure you save on your way out. I need it to know that there's a rubric in place. Okay, that's super important. Now, the other thing, if I come in here, now I've got this little AI rubric on the bottom. The other area is in assessment. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add an assessment, and I'll call this my AI assessment. And I'm going to come into questions, and I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just going to come in. So here's my essay question, and whatever it might be. And if I used Busy Bee to create it, it would have a nice answer, right? But now in here, if I come in and add a rubric to this mix, and again, I'm just going to say empty, and I'm going to say question one, because I might have more than one essay question. I might have two, I might have three, right? So I'm going to add one more. So we'll do another essay, and this is going to be, I'm going to come back up here, and we'll call this is essay question two, essay question two. And then I'm going to come back over here and add a rubric, and I'm going to add an empty one again and call this question two, and I'm going to save, right? So those are the two areas currently where rubrics are used, right? Against an essay in an assessment, and against a submission in an assignment. So, and I'm going to save that. So now we're good there. Now the next tool you need is FileZilla, or some FTP tool. FileZilla for me is free. It's free for you too. It has a Mac and a Windows. I really like the application. I think it's a great tool. I use it all the time. Also, you can download Notepad++ if you want from this side, notepad-plus-plus.org, and downloads, and you can get, if you're on a Windows machine, you can get there. So I'm going to kill both of these. Again, up here, you have filezilla-project.org to download it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Now I'm going to go ahead and load up FileZilla, and we'll talk just briefly about how this tool operates. So Up here in the top, when it loads, you have the ability under the file manager to do a cite. And so in this case, you can set up as many buzz URLs. So understand that you can use FTP tool to move resources to the domain, but you can also do it to a course, which is what we are going to focus on. So in this case, you need to make sure that your selection is FTP. You need to say that it's an ftt.agilixbuzz.com, and we're using explicit FTP over TLS if available. All those are good. Login is normal. Then you need to come up with your username, whatever it might be, and then the password, whatever it might be. And then on the advanced tab, you're going to have right here this default remote directory. Now, in this case, 162.815.101 is a course ID. And so I'm going to come back over here to Better on Buzz, and I'm going to say, okay, I need the course ID on this one. So I'm going to go back up home. I'm going to go back over to the admin, and I'm going to say, okay, I need courses. And so I'm going to find Better on Buzz. And it's this section right here. So there's the course ID, 162.847.553. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to change this one to be that course ID. And if you do _A, you'll get all of the assets, which in this case you need to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and say connect. I could say okay, and it would memorialize it in the site manager. I'm going to go ahead and connect. And so it's going to come through and load up. Now let's talk about this for a minute. You've got your local side, which is your local, C drive where you're messing around with stuff. You can see that I already have this rubric sitting over in junk that I created before at the beginning of the video. So it's showing up in downloads junk because that's where I put it. And now as I open up this, I can start seeing all the assets that are available to me. So I can see the activity themes. I'm going to pull this up a bit. So my course has a lot of themes, and each one of those themes has a file name. It's a GUID. If I look at assets, the assets of the course are the same as the assets or resources you see in the section itself. So if I come back over and edit this, you're going to see, whoops, I went into the editor. If you come to the editor, this little piece over here, this resource list is everything you see when you are looking at this detail. So if I came down below the ears, you'd start seeing these folders, these files right here. One, put in order ping, 2, put in order ping. So my ability to drag something from here and drop it in, I could do with FTP, and vice versa. I can take something from FTP and bring it back over. You can see I've got folders sitting up here which align to the folders I have here, right? So again, a lot of commonality. You can see copied, embed, hangman, blah, blah, blah. So these are all the folders. So again, understand that underneath the assets area, I've got all of the availability of the assets that my course is going to use. You can also set up badges. You also have rubrics and you have templates. Now, the difference between rubrics and templates are based upon a couple of things, right? Rubrics are connected to your essay question items. That's super important. And as you play around with this, if you just click last modified, you'll see these two up here were just created today. And these are the rubric that was built in order to connect it to the essay question. Remember, I built 2, so that's why there are 2 here. If I were to drag this one over to my local drive, and if I were to drag this one over to my local drive, I would have the ability to edit both of these and push them back, right? So if I go ahead and do a right mouse click and say open, it's going to open it in Notepad for me because that's the tool I have it connected to. And you can see that it doesn't have a lot into it other than question 1, which is the important part of the puzzle. So the way that we do with this now, I'm going to update this particular one. So I'm going to come back over to ChatGPT because that's my AI tool. And in ChatGPT, I have the ability to use it to build me something. So my prompt says, please create a rubric using the XML format below, which is that XML format you wrote before and you saved it out. When a rubric title exists, so in this case, down in here, you'll see that grammar and organization was the one I had left in place. If it exists, please use it to create corresponding body elements. In the example before, rubric ID 4, blah, blah, blah. If the rubric title does not exist, please create a title for each of the remaining rubric rules, right? So it can find rubric rules and then create all the 4 bodies. So all of this you can grab and type in. This seems to work pretty well for me. I've had good success with it. So now if I come back down at the bottom of this, then I say, after this is all done, based upon the following learning material. And this happens to be a bribery case. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And when I do, I've got it opening up in a canvas, which is fine, but you can see down in here what it produced. So now, understanding ethical concepts, it took those areas and made them something unique to the information that we were sending, all 1, 2, 3 point, because that's how I built my XML file. And now when I'm done, I can go ahead and copy this element, because now I've got a good, full, clean rubric. This is a canvas inside ChatGPT, and I happen to be using the paid for version, but I think you're probably fine with a free one. So I just copied that. Now I'm going to come back over that part about this thing here, the bottom, the bribery case, would have been what's in the essay or the passage that you built the question from. That's where you would have got this, is from your passage in your assessment. So now I'm going to come back over, since I have it copied, and I'm going to go ahead and replace the one I just randomly built with the one I want. And because I didn't change the file name, I can go ahead and save that. And now I've got an updated rubric that I can push back. I'm going to come back over to FTP, and I'm going to go ahead and bring over the second rubric. So I'm going to bring it. Oh, I already brought it over. So now I'm going to open the second one. In this case, this case, I'm going to file open. And you can see this again is question 2 or essay 2 with probably a different prompt. So I'm going to come back over here to my chat GPT, and I'm simply going to edit this without changing anything else. And I'm going to come down to the bottom, and I'm simply going to change what it's connected to. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see what I've got in my paste buffer. I don't like any of those. So let me come back over and grab this little Wikipedia thing. So I've got a Wikipedia on the Great Wall of China. So we'll grab, some information through the Great Wall of China. I'm going to copy that, come back over to ChatGPT. And again, well, I want my rubric based upon the Great Wall of China. So I put that in there and I send it on its way. And then when I come down, you're going to see that it's now recreating the rubric following the XML example that I gave it, and it's fixing these titles, historic context. It would take me hours to write this rubric. But now that I've got it squared away, architectural features and functions of the Great Wall, and then finally the third one, geographic scope, the Great Wall is little, no detail, has, so you can see mentions, provides, describes, thoroughly explains, all of that stuff works really, really well. And so now that I'm done with the grammar part of it, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to come back over to Notepad. And I'm just going to highlight that and replace it. And now I'm going to save this one. I'm going to save that away. Now I've got both of those. And because I'm working on them, I'm going to come back over to FTP. These have been now updated. And I'm simply going to take these and drag them back up. That's going to overwrite both of them so that they now replace that little question 1, question 2 with a full blown out item. The same thing occurs when I'm building a one for an assignment. So if I come back over to Buzz and I look at Buzz and I come down here, when I look at the AI rubric, the important thing here is that I need to identify where the item ID is. So I need to find item ID 411A4. So if I come back over to FTP, this time I'm going to go to templates and I'm going to come into data, and you can see here that if I sort by the file name, I'm looking for 411. These are all the learning activities in the course. So when I come down to 411 and I grab, you can see it right there. If I click on it, I now have underscore rubric and I have index.html. So now I already have this one over here. So anyway, I'm going to drag it over and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. right? So now I have index.html. If I double click on it, it's going to, in my case, or if I'm going to not double click, but if I'm going to open it, it's going to open it in Notepad. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Remember, it's empty. So now I'm going to go back over to ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to build me a new one. And this time we'll use how do I get, I don't know, stop and reflection. It's just another chunk of information, right? So it's narrative, English writing. So now I'm going to come back up. I'm going to edit the same one I've been doing before. I'm going to come down and simply replace it again based upon the following. I'm getting rid of the Great Wall of China, putting in the new one, sending it along its way, and then it'll rebuild that rubric for me yet again. And so now as it's rebuilding, it's taking again my model, understanding, blah, blah, blah. And based upon what you gave it, shows minimal, shows basic, demonstrates a good understanding, exhibits comprehensive, use of descriptive language. Again, it would take me forever to write this, and I'd have to be a content expert. But now if I simply understand the model, I can go ahead and replicate this pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this last one. And once it's done, I'm going to go ahead and copy it, right? So now it's done. I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to use the copy command. I'm going to come back over to Notepad++. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to replace it, Control V, and now I'm going to save it, right? And when I save it, that will update it. And now I can come back to file transfer. And because I'm sitting on the ID of the learning activity that I'm working with, I simply drag it back over, it replaces it, and I'm good to go. So now just to give you a final shot at it, if I come back over here and refresh my system and I preview this guy since I was just sitting on it, preview it, and it has a Dropbox. When I view it, it's going to have this really nice rubric. Now, we don't preview rubrics in an assessment, but I will use them when I grade. So there you go. That's how you do it. And you just repeat and rinse, repeat and rinse, repeat and rinse. You just plow through them. And you'll have very unique rubrics that are aligned specifically to the learning activity. And then the question or the grading assistant will use these to give deeper and more meaningful feedback to your learners. Hope it helps. Thanks.